I really hope that you guys are enjoying this series. If you have any questions, any suggestions on what we should be uh, taking up as a topic to talk about, please share with us through email, WhatsApp, message, whatever you feel like. We are really enjoying doing this, and we really hope you're finding this useful. So we'll be very happy to get the suggestions. So today's topic is collaborative forecasting, an extremely important topic according to me. Uh, Whether we use a system, whether we do statistical forecasting or not, every company is doing collaborative forecasting for sure. Just give me a second. Right. So sorry about that. Small technical glitch. So I was saying, yes, the collaborative forecasting is something that everybody does, and we meet a lot of companies when they are evaluating a system, and when we ask them whether they do forecasting, they say yes, and then when we ask them how do they do it, they say we send out Excel files to sales guys and they fill it up and send it back. So basically there is no statistical forecasting in a lot of places, but the feedback from the sales team, from the others in the system are absolutely existing, and that collaborative forecast forms the actual forecast. Of course, where the statistical forecast are in place, then also it becomes extremely important. This topic is also very important today in post-COVID world, because as most of us know, the statistical forecast would not be really reliable because of this change or disruption that has happened in last few months. So obviously the statistical results would be pretty unreliable, but the collaboration becomes that much more important, right? So we'll talk about how do we go about doing this, and what are some of the best practices, what have been our learning experience in this process. Um, by the way, those of you who don't know me, I'm Rishi Trivedi. I'm sorry, I just took it for granted. It's part of Anamind. And what we do is we are planning people. So we offer solutions, we offer services, and we offer education in planning. To know more about us, you can, of course, visit our website. Predominantly, we deal with three systems today: Focus Pro, Streamline, and Vanguard. It covers right from demand planning to integrated business planning, all aspects. Today, you would get a glimpse of two of these systems when I talk about collaborative forecasting. What's on the agenda today? We'll first just recap on the need for forecasting or need for collaboration in forecasting. Whom do we collaborate with within our organizations? And then we'll have a look at the system-based collaboration. We'll also talk about the unconstrained and the constrained overrides. What should we review? There are thousands of part numbers and products. We'll see how we can limit that selection. We'll also talk about override reporting, how we should go about doing that. And then lastly, we'll just quickly touch upon some of the issues that this whole collaboration exercise creates for us, the planners. So let me start with a slide from our training program, and to just do a recap on need for collaboration. So we all know the statistical forecast is the starting point. That's the what we call a baseline forecast. And how do we get that? We get that from the historical data, external parameters like weather and whatnot, if your products and companies get impacted. But basically it's based on data, it's based on history, as well as some other parameters. So that's the baseline forecast. And then we do a review of that with collaboration. And why is it required? Because we need business knowledge. There are people working in the organization always trying to change the game for the company, right? Take it to the next level by launching new products, doing promotions, opening new stores, new territories, fighting with the competition, and whatnot. So these activities are different from what you've done in the past, right? That's why you're doing it now, and that information needs to be got on the table. It could also be information about the market, about a particular location that needs to be uh, admitted to the forecast. right? So that's why we need, and it's a combination of statistical plus this override that makes a final forecast for us. So and that's the forecast that you actually work with for the supply planning purpose. So that's why collaboration is extremely important, and it plays a very, very important role in the whole forecasting process. Next question is, whom do we collaborate with, right? This slide is also from our training, and we predominantly very, very heavily collaborate with salespeople because we are basically doing sales forecasting, right? So it's very, very important. And when they look at the forecast, they are trying to understand the consumer trend, demand, and they are constantly comparing it with their target, right? Because that you're saying this is what you're going to sell. So that's it's very important to understand the mindset of your colleagues whom you are collaborating with in this whole process. How are they looking at the data? They're obviously not looking at the data the way you are looking at it, right? So you are looking at it from the planning perspective, but they are looking at it from their own needs. Like for the sales guys, it's their target that they are tracking. Marketing, of course, sees the data to figure out if they need to plan a promotion. They have their budgets to deal with. Of course, the other people in supply chain, especially the supply planning folks and the logistics, they want to know in terms of the truck capacities, the distribution planning and stuff like that. We have operations folks, which is of course needed for production purposes, the raw material planning and stuff like that. And then there are other people you may or may not collaborate with in your organization, but finance is some one function that keeps coming in and out of the S&OP process depending on company to company. And they of course need to track it in terms of the financial planning and budgeting, whether it's in tune with that. So mostly across the world and across the organization, these are the functions that most planners collaborate with. It could be just sales, it could be all of these five functions, right? And I put marketing along with sales over here. So let's now jump on to the tool, and I'm going to open Forecast Pro here, one of our tools that we work with, and show you an example. So here is the forecast grid, right? On the right hand side. On the left hand side is the forecast hierarchy, the product hierarchy basically, and it's a dummy data. It's set up in a way that there are two warehouses and then there are two locations, right? As dummy. Over here, it's important to note what we have done here is that we have these three override lines, right? So you have a statistical baseline forecast, and I've selected here Chennai for a cold cream 120 grams SKU. And this is the forecast for that in Chennai location. Now we have these three override grids. That's a sales, supply chain, and the management, right? So basically what you're doing in collaboration is that you're asking for your team to review the data, and basically asking them if they have some more information to know whether this is right or wrong. So if I'm a area manager for Chennai, or say for South, we have Bangalore here. So let's say Chennai, right? So there would be a regional manager on top of us for South. And Chennai area manager sees, okay, 120 grams cold cream, 6,255. I think Chennai people are mostly at home. It's maybe, and in this is post-COVID world, I think I'll go a little conservative here. The people are stocking up. I would probably make it 5,000, right? I'm changing this now. So I'm changing it by 1,255 units downwards, right? What I would do if I'm using a good system and a good process, and this I would really advise most of you to follow this process. This is something which is not really as strongly implemented in the companies, is to give the comments, make people give comments for the changes. So lower demand for due to lockdown, right? And I do commit over here. As soon as I do that, you see that the statistical forecast 6,255 is still there, but the final forecast has changed to 5,000. This is how Forecast Pro works. Now we have changed this to 5,000 for Chennai, and the reason has been recorded, right? Because 12 months down the line, we would want to know whether this was a change in demand in Chennai, or there was a particular reason? And when we look back, oh yeah, the lockdown was still continuing there. In fact, it's restarted this week, so that's why the demand is down. And when the Bangalore area manager looks, says, oh, the Bangalore weather has changed, has become actually quite good. For those of you who are not here, the it's almost pretty cold, and people are stocking up still. So I think I can do maybe, oops, sorry, I'm not there, 2,000 units here. And I would go here and as a best practice put in my reasons, IS stocking up, demand and weather change. It may not be so next year, right? So you have to be careful. So we recorded that, right? And everybody does that. Now if I am a regional manager south for this company, and I'm reviewing it, I would not go and see Bangalore and Chennai, or I may not be interested in making changes at that level. I would probably go and see, okay, what's my demand for 120 gram, which is my fastest selling SKU in the cold cream, and it's 7553, out of which 2K is going to Bangalore and rest is going to Chennai. So I would probably say, you know what, these guys are pretty optimistic, or they are pretty pessimistic. I would rather, I think I want to go aggressive now, and I think I would want to make it 8,000. So have a look at this. Now this is something that the regional manager is doing at the region level and not at the location level, right? And at this point, let's see if it allows me, right? There's a conflict. So we have already changed it at the lower level, so hence it's not allowing me. But say let's take another say another category, and we say here this, we don't want it to be reviewed at the regional level, but at the overall level I would rather make it 9,000. Let's be a little bit more conservative, and I would say lower demand due to COVID. Everything is now reasoned out to COVID in this scenario, and it becomes 9,000. So, and when I go to Chennai and Bangalore, it would have changed the forecast. It would have reduced both of them proportionately in the same proportion itself. Right. So this is how probably a sales team would collaborate. Now you could do it over here, and Forecast Pro actually now allows you to do it using an Excel sheet. So if they do not have a direct interface, or they do not rather like, they would need to have some kind of an installation. But if they do not like to use the system and they're more happy doing it on an Excel sheet, they can do the same thing over here in Excel file, right? And they can say, okay, I want to make this month say 1,500, and this month say 5,000. I'm just making it up. And there is a way to import this data directly into the system. So each sales guy can have his own file. You see that there is a historical data information here. There's whole product hierarchy here. We can also, to some extent, customize this in terms of what information they want to see. If they want to see historical data in terms of column as well, we can do that. But basically, it's a very, very familiar Excel interface. Right? It also shows us which is something liked by people, on what was the original graph and where it has changed. So this red line is the override, which means that the forecast has been pulled down, whereas the statistical forecast was higher. I'm not spending much time over here because what I also want to talk about is the unconstrained and the constrained forecast. And this is something which has been heavily discussed in the forecasting circles, whether the forecast should be unconstrained. Yes, the two forecasts should be unconstrained, one done by the planners using the statistical data. So baseline should be unconstrained. So you need to have all your outliers and history clean that Sheetal spoke to you about last week. And the sales guys should give an unconstrained forecast. And this is again something, especially in this part of the world, sales guys do not really follow. And as a planners, we should implement that. They should not talk about stocks. If they have to give a forecast, assuming stocks are available, unless there is a very, very known situation, but they should not speculate about stocks not being available. Otherwise, we as planners lose out on the real demand information. So when they're saying it's 2,000, it should be without the constraint of the stock. who should be talking about the stock constraint is the supply guys, right? Because that's their domain. They are aware whether the supply is going to happen or not happen. So that's a big difference between how the sales guys should approach this data and how the supply guys should approach this data, right? Now, when the reason why the supply guys need to collaborate and review this data is to know whether we are good to supply this, right? With all probability, right? There should not be a doubt. If there is a reason for us not being able to achieve this forecast because of supply purpose, then they should be forecasting. Now, why I mean they would should be overriding this and constraining this. Why would this happen, or in which scenarios? It could be the sales logistics issues, it could be material issues, it could be also the production issues, either the raw material constraints or the production constraint. All of these are very, very valid in today's scenario. For example, let's say we know that Chennai has gone into a lockdown situation again, and what if we do not have warehouse in Chennai, for instance, or there is a logistics issue, and we cannot really get the material into Chennai. So the supply manager over from this HQ or whatever says, hey guys, you know what, I doubt we'll be able to even have 5,000, and all I can support over here above what you have is sorry about my system, is 3,000, right? And what we are doing here is we are constraining the forecast because it's a fact that in this month or in this week, whatever the column denotes, if we will not be able to supply any with any question more than that, right? So lockdown constraint. These things have become easy to explain in this COVID world because it's not an imaginary situation, but that's happening. It could happen that, you know, in say, for example, another product, let's say take this one, and at the production level itself, we know that we have enough to produce for August, but not for September because we have a raw material import issue. So we will probably not be able to make anything more than say 4K available to sell. And if we do that, we just say RM issue, whatever, and give a heads up. So why is this important? And this again, I feel from our experience that planning process misses out on the input from the operations people on this, anything beyond what you forecast for. And this is extremely important because if you know for sure that in this month there's going to be a RM issue, or there's not going to availability of this 480 grams, first of all, you set your expectations very, very clear in terms of, say, sales guys know that this is not where they're going to get the availability, so they can substitute it in elsewhere. Your logistics capacities can be planned. Your dealers can be given heads up on that this is not going to be available. So variety of reasons, but you are better planned, and it's something that I can't stress enough on. So it's just not the immediate period or the current period, but it's also the forward period that, especially from the supply side, one should be aware of. Who else need to look beyond current period is possibly the marketing guys, because if there is a, if say we go back to Bangalore and we see here the sales are dropping, this could be a seasonality of the product. But if it was not so, they would want to plan a promotion in advance, right? They need budgets, they need activities to be planned, information to be sent out in the market. So that needs to be planned, and who else needs to know about it? So if I'm going to do here sudden jump of, say, from 700 units, which the system is predicting, I suddenly want to sell 3,000 here, right? Let's put it in sales here since we don't have a separate line, and say that we are planning a promotion, right? Where, whom you think would be impacted, right? So just 2 months to go and I'm suddenly planning a promotion, the operations guys need to confirm this if there is enough material available or they need to procure. So they need to know in advance. And the best way to be successful and without the lack of material is to let everybody know in advance. And that's why we call ourselves planners, because we need to plan very, very well. So that's how uh, the collaboration using a system should be. And another good part is, and something that gets missed out in an Excel sheet, is that everything is transparent and known here, right? So you know what was the baseline, you know who changed what, you know the reasons for those changes. So if I was a sales guy, I come here, I also see why supply chain, why my 5,000 is not taken and it's actually 3,000 now is what I'm getting. It's because the supply guys pulled it down, and this is their comment, right? So he's aware why his forecast was changed. Also, anybody else, a supply guy come and says why suddenly this 480 grams is higher over here. I don't know which one will be changed, or this one. I even forgot about that. So if we are planning a promotion here, he knows, okay, this has suddenly got jumped, which I didn't see last month. It was just 700 units odd, and now it is showing 3,000. What happened? What are these guys doing? Or they're planning a promotion. That's how the communication works within a system. And if you are using, say, a much more advanced system like, say, Vanguard, you also get to have this chat box, right? Which means you can, it's almost like a mini Facebook, or whatever you call it. You say this is a say this is SKU 100, and you can actually leave messages here that, hey, David Williams, I'm sorry, I don't have my name or any other name here, but can you check this product for August? Something like that. Or we just leave a note here. If we do add, then David Williams get a notification saying that there's somebody, Rishi has asked me a question or left me a note. I can also say that, okay, this is COVID time demand, not a usual scenario, just for my own note for next year, right? So we can chat, we can leave notes for ourselves. So it I would say more than Facebook, this more like Slack. If you guys use it, it is a communication device. So you get these features in an advanced system like Vanguard. Next question is, how do we actually collaborate? And again, when we talk to companies, a lot of times people ask, I can't have my sales guys review, and you're telling me that every item over here he should go and review it, right? That's not possible. Of course, it's not possible. And my advice to them is, even if it is possible, please don't do that. The whole purpose of using a statistical forecast and having a demand planning team in place is to avoid too many changes in the data, because somebody has already planned in advance using that data, and every month you're going to come and change it, then there is absolutely no way somebody can use that for a good planning. So if the sales guys are looking at every single line item and changing it, then the process is broken. There is no need for the planning process. You might as well ask them to just fill it up and use that. The collaboration should happen to bring in the information which the system does not have, right? So if there is really something which is valuable and which requires a change, so it could be on a pull basis, which means that sales guys know something, and for sure, as a national head or a regional head, whatever, I know that 120 grams in Chennai, or the 120 grams in a region, whatever the level of hierarchy it may be, I have some information that this product is not going to sell, or this product is going to sell more, or there's a competition activity, whatever it is, I must inform the planning team. That's on a full basis. So I know, and as soon as I get this data, I know I should go and correct it and review the statistical forecast. The other way of doing this is on a push basis from the planning team itself. See, you know that you do a Pareto analysis. you can do an ABC and say, okay, only review A items, and maybe within A items, the top heroes, right? If there is no other information on the other. Or in a system like Forecast Pro, you can create these hot lists, right? So if I click here and say create a hot list, either only that item or its ascendants, descendants, whatever, it comes over here in the hot list. So if I go here, I don't have to look for these items in this hierarchy. I can actually, just find. So I know whatever is in this box, I need to only review that and correct if required. So that, or you can, what you can do is, we spoke about 2 weeks back on the planning BI, and then there is we can have your exception reports. So you can define as a process whether which items warrant review. So in this report, it says that anything above 50% YOY is something that planning team should look at, or sales team. So if you think these requires a review, you can create reports like this, and then these items is something that the planning team as well as the collaborators can review, and you can actually put it in a hot list over here. So that's the other way. So there are various ways where you need not have either yourselves or your collaborators look at each and every item. That's actually not required and should not be done. If your process is good and mature, it should be only on items which warrant exceptions. The other important thing I must mention on is how much should the override be. And it seems like that this is a very dear topic to a lot of companies in our part of the world. And we get to hear this, that can we limit the sales guys not changing anything beyond 10%, right? Or can we put a threshold that it should be only between plus and minus 5%, 10%, or whatever that percentage that they want to control. Now, I'm just trying to understand what it means. So what it means is that if there is a small change, please come and tell me. And if there's a big change that you're expecting, please do not come tell me. So if the change you are expecting is beyond 10%, which is 20%, 50%, this demand can change. I don't want to know it. Keep your mouth shut. Do not tell me. But if it's a small change of 5%, 10%, then go and change, which means that he is required to almost review every item, which means that your threshold of your forecast accuracy is very, very poor, which means any which ways, if you are at 90% forecast accuracy, which is a 10% error, isn't that good? Very, very few companies are at 90% forecast accuracy. So even if your forecast collaborator, process collaborator does not change anything, and there is an error of 5 or 10%, which you wanted him to correct, you are still at 90% accuracy. So why do you want him to spend his time on that? Because nothing in the whole process is dramatically going to change. To me, it should be, and that's how when I used to be planner, it was a clear mandate on reverse, and that's why I find it very, very surprising when this question comes from some of the companies. If the mandate is completely reverse, tell me if there is a major change, right? If there is more than at least 25-30% change, rest everything I can manage, right? And now that threshold can be different. I would say 25-30%, you can say 20%, and some may say even 50%, but that threshold has to be higher, and not a piddly amount of 5 or 10%. And ideally, left to me, there should not be any threshold. It should be just a guidance. It should not be a system-based law. Let salesperson get their information. They would all obviously be telling us something which is important and not something which is frivolous. So this is something I wanted to share, which is very, very important, according to me, not to put restrictions in the system. Secondly, now once we have done all this forecast, is on the reporting, right? Now, if you're using a system, the system would give you a report. For example, if I go here, it very quickly gives me a report on forecast overrides. So think about it this way, that you have sent out people collaborating. There's been salespeople, marketing, supply chain, supply planning people, the operations people. Everybody has done forecast, and you see these red uh, blocks here and green blocks. So red is basically something that where somebody has changed something, like I was doing those changes while I was explaining you, and green is something which is not, nothing has changed. So the problem then comes back to us as planners, is that how do we know what has changed and where, right? So ideally you should not be scouting for it one by one. Good reports like this override report tells us what has changed, and it's pretty good because it tells us what level of hierarchy things have changed, by whom in terms of function, and it tells us what was the baseline forecast, what did it change to, and what was the comment. So when we advise companies when they are implementing system, it's this report that should be used in the SNOP meeting and nothing else. You need not go and check every item and discuss, right, unless the statistical forecast itself needs to be discussed. But in your meeting with the stakeholders in the SNOP process, it's this report that should be discussed, because this is the only line items where there is a disconnect with the statistical forecast or with the forecast of another person, or this and this is the report which these are the line items which where there is an additional information that has come from the collaborators. So this requires a discussion, this requires acceptance, and this requires cognizance of. And then you, once in the SNOP process, you can actually jump to these items. I'm sorry, I closed that screen uh, over here, right? So we jump to these items and then probably can use the management report. I am actually struggling with the Zoom screens here. And then we use this, okay, statistical forecast was 1298. The sales guys are saying 2000 for this location, which is over here. Uh, and so in the SNOP meeting, we decide on say 1800. We just either keep 2000 or we decide on whatever number, and then gets recorded as well. This is the screen which would also help us do reports like FEA that we saw in the inaugural learning session that we had 2 weeks back on the planning BI, and I'll probably just touch upon that. So this is how a good process, implementing a system, would not only help you get a good override done in the system, get it recorded, run a good SNOP process, and also report it very, very well. So in terms of, we go back to our BI reports that we saw earlier, uh, you can have your forecast versus actual, and then over here in your FEA, basically what FEA is telling us is nothing but the effectiveness of your sales collaboration, right? You say that, okay, because of my collaboration, the baseline forecast was changed from this number of 127 to 100, and because of this, my forecast accuracy went down by 16%. So by collaborating, I'm making the process worse in this case. And whereas in something else, for example, this nice line over here, it's actually by collaborating and asking for suggestions, I'm actually improving the forecast accuracy by 23%. I'm not trying to make this dramatic. This will happen. There would be something going wrong and something which is getting improved. The whole idea is to keep everything in green, because that's the whole purpose of collaboration. But there will be cases where this would be read in every company across the world. And the whole idea again is in the SNOP process to discuss these red lines and figure out why did it go wrong. Is it because something that was expected to happen and didn't happen? Chennai suddenly went into a lockdown again for this nth time, which nobody knew of, and hence we could not sell, which we were optimistic about, for instance. Or it could be a positive up that some the competitor could not supply and people we got an advantage, whatever may be the reason. Or it could be that truly our judgment went wrong, and that's at this point which needs to be improved upon, right? So any which ways we should know the reason of what's going wrong. Uh, we can have more override reports, like what is the overall change, which function did what changes, which location, terms of percentage. I already discussed this in the BI section, so I'll not go into that, but I'm just tying the threads over here on what reporting can do, and what tools you can use for further enhancing your override reports for the forecasting process. Lastly, once you have done all this, and if you're having a very good collaborative process, it will also have some of its issues, right? And if you are working with people, and if you are engaging with a lot of people, then obviously there are issues related to that, and something that we should be aware of. Just taking a couple of examples over here. The sales guys by nature are optimistic, and smart as well. So they would want, if your forecast is not anywhere near their targets, or by a reasonable margin, they would try to push it up, and so that they don't get questioned on they are going to miss the target, at least till the time the time is over, and they obviously would be trying hard to achieve that number. Secondly, they would also want material to be available. So last thing they want to miss out on their targets, and the number that they're working on is because of lack of material. So sales guys always ensure that the material is available, and if they understand the process well, they know that it's the forecast which drives the supply, and hence the forecast has to be up there to get the material in. So that's a very typical problem we face. So you need to be aware of that, it's not getting bumped up in this whole process just for the material availability. um, I won't touch upon everything, but marketing team may do to push their ideas. They need to plan the promotion. uh, Operations and supply, they are more conservative people, and they may take their calls accordingly. So when you share the data and you ask for overrides and review, when you get the data back, this is what it may look like, and this is what we call the bias in the forecast, right? So you see how different things are tied to this whole process, and this is something, as a custodian of the forecast, planners have to be cognizant about, that while it can add value to the process, and that's a huge benefit of collaboration, that it adds value, it can also have bias inbuilt into the forecast, which can further spoil the forecast accuracy. And for that reason, we have these reports called forecast bias, which again, you to ensure that doesn't happen, you need to send out these bulletins. Hey, look, this is what you're doing for last 3 months. I'm seeing continuous under forecasting and over forecasting. Next time when you are reviewing the data and giving in your inputs, please be aware of this this trend. And that's how you contain, you drive the behavior, right? So while it's great, every process has its great advantages and value. None of us can do without collaboration, but you should have tools to ensure that your collaborative process is very tight, and it is giving you the value that you should. And that's where the reporting comes very, very useful. The FEA report, the bias report, again, is extremely useful to ensure that there is a healthy process in place. Boy, it's 15:39 months more. So I need to hit the stop button, but I hope you really enjoyed. If you have any questions on this, feel free to write to us. Since we're out of time, I'll not take the questions over here, but if you have any questions, then please reach out to us, and we'll be happy to answer you. Jitendra, I see your question, but this is regarding the OTB. We will probably take it offline, and I'll send you a note, right? Thank you so much, and have a great day ahead. Thanks for joining in today. Bye-bye.